you're building an apartment complex, there are incentives that you can tap into, that they are willing to assist you with the building of your product. Like when I say incentives, we're talking about duty exemptions on construction materials, on bringing in materials, and the likes, just to encourage the construction of additional accommodations. So just in a brief, just to sum it all up, there is still a demand for long-term rentals in the Turks and Caicos Islands. Remember, if you have a question, feel free to put it in the comment section, and I'll do my best to answer them as they come along. Let's talk a little bit about the rental prices. Of course, rental prices can vary in the Turks and Caicos Islands depending on the location and the type of property. Right now, the type of properties that we have that are actually rented on a long-term basis, you have apartments that most people are familiar with, right? You also have condos. Yes, those condos that you see on Grace Bay Beach, they are not just in the short-term VRBO market, but they also can be rented on a long-term basis, as well as you have single-family homes that you will see in the various residential neighborhoods. This is another rental type accommodation that is prevalent in the Turks and Caicos Islands. Now, what are the prices for these? Of course, it will vary based on location, also based on the number of bedrooms, etc. You know, that those are different things that will dictate the price. But just to give you an example right now, how the market is going, like how we talked about it so vibrant in Turks and Caicos, a one-bedroom apartment can run you anywhere from $1,000 up to $2,500. Yes, there are places that are renting a one-bedroom at $2,500. So it can start as low as $1,000 up to $2,500. And these are like good locations that you will feel satisfied to be having you and your family in a one-bedroom per month, right? Now, if you're thinking more of a condo type development, a one-bedroom can actually run you up to more like $3,500, even up to $5,000 a month if you want to be in a condo development. So again, the prices of rental will be determined based on the type of accommodation that you are in, as well as the location of that development. So if you have any questions about that, please feel free to put it in the comment section, and I will be more than happy to elaborate a little bit on it. Now, what is included in these rental at these prices? First of all, 99% of rentals in the Turks and Caicos Islands come furnished, fully furnished, right? Unlike the States where most of them are rented empty and you have to find your own furniture. Of course, we know these rental accommodations come fully furnished 99.9% of the time. And also you have to think about when you are getting into a long-term rental, you are looking to pay at least first month's rent, last month rent, and a security deposit. Every landlord may change their requirements a little bit, but you should be expecting to pay first month's, last month's, and security deposit. In the case, and this rental, when you pay that, you have to remember that you are also responsible for your utility. So if your rent is $1,000 per month, it's $1,000 per month plus the utilities. Now, if you are renting in a condo development, in most cases, the amount you will be quoted will most likely include your utilities. And that's because the development already have all of those utilities switched on, and the owner of that condo unit is going to receive a monthly bill. So your rental rate will include the cost of the utilities. If you're not in a condo development, if you're in a single family home or an apartment complex, most likely you will be responsible for turning on those utilities yourself. So if your rent is $1,000, it will be plus utilities, and you will have to go through the process of connecting those utilities through Fortis, through the water company, through WIV or Flow, whichever service provider you choose to use. Is it simple to just turn them on? Yes, there are online procedures. So far, it's very good that, like, for example, Fortis as well as the water company, they do accommodate you where you can go online and do a lot of this to turn on your utilities. One question that is normally asked about rentals and accommodation is people are interested in knowing, especially when they're moving to the islands, is about internet. I think that the Turks and Caicos Island has very good internet, high-speed internet, which is so essential in today's world because most of the things we do, we depend on internet. It's so interesting that even at work on a daily basis, if the internet goes out, it feels as if you cannot get anything accomplished. But I must say that we have good internet connection in the Turks and Caicos Island, right? So typically, when we speak about long-term rental, we are thinking about a rental that's about 6 to 12 months. That is what is considered long-term. Anything that's 6 to 12 months in nature, that's what you think about in regards to long-term. I always say to you, if you're signing, going into a long-term rental, make sure to be able to verify the terms and conditions of the lease. Because if you break your lease within that 6 to 12 months, there may be penalties that are associated with breaking that lease, okay? So that's just a word to the wise when you are entering into any lease agreement for a long-term contract. Be sure to read it out carefully so that you are able to know if there are any penalties if you break the lease before. All right, so I'm just looking at my phone and I'm noticing that there is a question. Good afternoon. Why do you think that that more persons are moving from long-term rentals to short-term renting of their properties? That's a very good question. That's something I spoke about just earlier. Like you said, a lot of people have apartments or homes, single-family homes, and they're moving into putting them on the short-term rental market versus long-term. I feel like the reason for this is a number of reasons. For one, for example, I think people, when it comes to short-term, they have seen the profitability of the short-term vacation rental market in the Turks and Caicos Islands, and I think this is something they would want to tap into. They feel that it is more profitable for them. I think people are getting wind that short-term rental is not just about being in a beachfront property, but they are realizing that short-term rental actually works even in properties that are inland, which is very good. And I also think that COVID has changed the way people have done business over the years, and because of this, in the Turks and Caicos Islands, we are now seeing where lots of people are coming to spend a few months at a time here on the island because they can do their business remotely. And of course, the need for short-term rentals have increased as well as long-term rentals. And I think that persons who have decided to switch over is trying to take advantage of the short-term rental market opportunity here in the Turks and Caicos Island. Again, I guess it all falls down to what are some of the benefits of a short-term rental, and I think that's going to help us to understand why buyers are thinking about moving, or some buyers have moved from renting their properties out long-term and moving their properties short-term. And if I would just share a few of those reasons or benefits of a short-term rental based on the question that I've been asked, I would say that, for example, flexibility in use. Some people feel that, you know what, they will still have access to their properties and then they will still be able to rent it and make money. Higher returns or higher demands, depends on the area that you're in. Higher potential income. For example, if you are renting a property on a long-term basis and you are renting that property for $2,500 a month plus utilities, that same property can be probably rented for $2,500 a week instead of $2,500 a month if you're doing it on a short-term basis. So I think persons are looking at it in that way about higher profitabilities in the long run. Um, in the long run. And also, there may be persons who are looking to get more fluidity in their cash flow. Because if you have a long term tenant, then you have to wait till at the end of the month to be paid. Whereas short term rentals, you are probably paid on a weekly basis. And this is it makes your cash more fluid, and can be another reasons why persons would have decided to move from that long term type of rental and into the short-term market. So I hope that answers your questions, just touching on some of the benefits of short-term versus long-term that may have encouraged some people to move in that direction. But definitely the market is very, in short-term rental is very vibrant, and is a good reason why some persons would have done so. All right. So I just want to say back, because we're talking about rental prices, just want to say I acknowledge that rental prices in the Turks and Caicos Islands, they are, most of them are very high, and it is difficult to find long-term rentals in affordable prices in the Turks and Caicos Islands. We are a luxury destination, and like I said before, there are so many changes happening in growth, and which has led to increase in rental prices throughout the Turks and Caicos Islands. And of course, supply outweighs demand, and that's normally a reason why rental rates would increase as well. Okay? So we've talked about prices. The other thing I would want to talk about is registration of long-term leases. I think this is very important for any person who's looking to put their property onto the long-term market, or persons who are currently renting long-term but not adhering to the laws of the Turks and Caicos Islands. I want to remind you that just as short-term rental properties has to be registered with the government, so does long-term properties. So if you have a property, even if it's an apartment building, with less than 3 units, because most times we would have looked at it as if it's 3 units or more. Now I understand that every unit has to be registered. It's a minimal fee that you will have to pay, but you need to make sure that your property is registered with the Turks and Caicos Islands government. So please make note of that, okay? Make sure that your long-term rental property is registered. Don't say, hey, I'm not doing rental short-term. You are still required to register your apartment that you are renting out on a long-term basis with the Turks and Caicos Islands government. Another note to owners, I just want to remind you that if you have leases that are 2 years and more, ensure that those leases are registered as well with the Turks and Caicos Islands government, to the Land Registry Department, again in accordance with the Registered Land Ordinance. If you have a tenant and the tenant is on a 1-year lease, it doesn't have to be registered. But if those leases are 2+ years, you need to ensure that those leases are registered. And on the same note, if you are a tenant and your lease is registered with the government, you can actually order a certified copy of that lease agreement so that you can have it as proof. And this is something also that I think landlords, I stand to be corrected, but I think landlords, if you have tenants, leases that are registered with the government, will have to present a copy of that to the registry, to the Revenue Department when you are renewing the leases on your long-term unit. So please be sure to make sure be guided accordingly for those who have leases in place. All right. So that, I think, is very important for owners of properties, just to remind them, register your properties. If your leases are over 2 years, make sure it's registered with the Land Registry Department. make sure order a certified copy of it so that you can have it on hand should that be asked and required of you when you go to do your renewals for your rental with the revenue department. So who can rent who can rent properties? So basically, if you are thinking, if you purchase a property and you want to rent it out, you do not have to come to a realtor. You have the freedom to rent that property on your own, definitely. But of course, I'm going to let you know what is the benefit of having a realtor to assist you in renting that property. And any realtor from any company can assist you in renting out properties. Every realtors, they have different services that they offer, but also rental of properties or finding tenants is also a part of the services that are offered. Why would you want to use a real estate agent when you are renting on a property? First of all, you can be guided through the process. To make sure it's done in the correct manner. They can assist with helping you find the best or suitable tenant. You may say that, hey, I can find my own tenant. Of course, you may be able to find your own tenant. But the good thing is sometimes we come in contact with so many people who are looking to rent or persons who have rented other properties, and we ask for different things, references. We make sure we have a tenant, know your tenant, your rental agreement, just so that we can scrutinize each tenant to make sure you are matched with the best tenant for your property. And also, as a real estate agent, we can assist you with ensuring that you have a lease in place to protect both your interests and, of course, the tenant interest as well. We are finding that lots of people who have apartment complexes, they do not have leases for their tenants. And should they look to sell their property in future, then this sometimes becomes an issue when you're thinking about vacant possession of these properties, or if you are going to be retaining these tenants in these properties. So just a reminder, if you do have an apartment complex or you do have a rental, we find that it's more in apartment complex than single family homes and condos, but especially the apartments. If you do have an apartment or rent, whether it's 1 unit or 12 units, please be sure to, get a lease in place. You can always contact an attorney who can assist you with putting together a lease agreement. Or you can or if you're using a real estate agent, that agent will have tried, tested, and proven rental agreements that you can use to be able to provide to your tenants to make sure everyone is actually everyone is protected. So that's so important. And this may sound like common sense things I'm talking about. It is common sense, but because I'm in this industry and I see that we do not put these things in place, that's why I'm making sure, reminding us of these simple little things that does make a difference when we decide to go and rent our properties out or we decide to sell our property. So make sure that you have a lease in place, right? So that would be beneficial to you in the long run. So here's one last thing I want to talk about in case, if you have any questions, this is your opportunity to put it in the comment section. We're talking about long-term rentals in the Turks and Caicos Islands. I'm looking at my phone, so if you have a question, I'll do my best to answer it. So one last thing I want to talk about, long-term rentals. Why would you want to get into the long-term rental market? There's a number of reasons you want to get into the long-term rental market. If you're looking to buy a property, like I've said before, there is still a need for long-term rental properties. It's still a need. We have many people who are looking. Supply, we don't have the supply for the demand that is out there, and for those who are requesting long-term rentals, and especially for affordable long-term rentals. I want to stick a pin here and say this. Sometimes you may see persons jumping from one apartment to the next. It's because the rentals are not affordable. That's really what it is. It's not sometimes that they want to keep moving, but it's just that it's not affordable. And sometimes they take a rental because that's all that is available at the time of them trying to find something, right? So there is a need. Hint, hint, if you are looking to make a purchase of a property and you want to know where is a good investment opportunity, long-term rentals is much still needed in the Turks and Caicos Islands. So again, what are some of the benefits of having a long-term rental property? Remember, it doesn't necessarily have to be an apartment. It could be a condo, it can be a home, or it can be an apartment. Number one, you have stable and predictable income. Stable and predictable income. If you, for example, have a home and you have a guest house that's attached to your home, one of the reasons you would want to put it on the long term to have stable and predictable income that can help you with paying your mortgage on a monthly basis. If you would have put that same home in a short-term rental, yes, there's a chance that you would get a higher return when it comes to income. But at the end of the day, if you would have rented out at a good rental rate, you will be sure that you can pay your mortgage and keep up with your mortgage on a monthly basis. So long-term rentals provide stable and predictable income. Number two, less turnover when it comes for the amount of tenants. If you have a tenant, just say on a 12-month lease, you don't have to think about all that in and out. When you have someone renting out short term, you think every week you have to find maids, you have to figure out how you're going to be changing over and getting the unit prepared week after week, which may be a little bit more time consuming for you, especially if you are working 9 to 5 and don't have somebody who's dealing with the property management of your unit. So that will makes it good. And of course, that because of that, it's low maintenance costs. You don't have to think about maids, cleaning services, mowing the lawn, all of this. The other thing is you can think about when you find a good tenant. You know, again, it's all about the stability, but the whole thing is you don't have to think about how are you going to find your next tenant, right? How are you going to find that next tenant? You have some good tenants out there, and some people, once they find the right place at the right price, they will stay with you for years at a time. So that creates a good reason why you should think about long-term renting. Ultimately, like we say, the right choice depends on your lifestyle, your preferences, your income goal, and also how much time you're willing to spend managing your property. Many property managers, sometimes they mix it, where a few months of the year they would just rent it for 6 months on a long-term basis, and then they also would rent on a short-term basis, but it's all up to you. Okay, so again, no questions, no comments. That's fine. Just want to talk about long-term opportunities in Turks and Caicos Islands, and since there aren't any additional questions, I just want to remind you that the long-term rental market in Turks and Caicos is still booming, and there is still a need for affordable long-term rental accommodations here in the Turks and Caicos Islands. So if you are that investor or that developer, if you are that person who's looking to make your mark in the Turks and Caicos Islands, this is an opportunity that you can tap into, because the island is continuously growing. Persons are continuously coming in to work on all these high-rise and these developments. People are changing their properties into short-term vacation rentals, and the need is still there for long-term rental accommodations. So until next time, I will say to you, stay safe and remain blessed, and definitely have a good evening, and thank you for watching Let's Talk TCI Real Estate. And one last thing, if there's ever a subject you want to talk about, feel free to put in the comment section, and I'll try my best to be able to expand on that topic for you. Have a great evening, and thank you for watching. The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed on this show belong solely to Let's Talk TCI Real Estate, and not that of Keller Williams TCI or any of its affiliates. Any action you take upon the information provided on this show is strictly at your own risk, and Let's Talk TCI Real Estate guests or hosts will not be liable for any losses and damages in connection with the use of the material. I am not an investment advisor, broker, or dealer.